Let's go. Welcome back. This is Tyler Johnson. I'm just going to come at you here on Saturday morning. I got the epic music in the background. I just want to talk a little bit on the MVP fantasy football rankings. And I'm going to put them down in the show notes. This is just going to kind of be a little quick one-on-one talk. I wanted to get out a video Saturday morning and just let everyone know that these rankings are available, and then also to let you know that I am working on the live stream Twitch for our draft that's coming up at 6 p.m. tonight. That is Central Time. We are in Wisconsin, and if you are looking to listen up, make sure you go to my Twitch. It is going to be BowTYz, BowTYz. The picture is of a lion with a bow tie, and it's orange in color. So just to make sure you have the right one. I do play a lot of games on there as well, but today is going to be our draft, and it's going to be at 6 Central Time. And right now I'm working on having 2 screens up, just kind of describe what we're going to be doing tonight, and also I'm going to go through the rankings really quick. It's not going to be a long video. It's more of a video just saying, hey, this is what's going on today. I'm going to start up the hype train. This is the biggest day for fantasy football drafts, and I am just pumped. I can't wait. I have one today. It's going to be a live draft that we're going to be live streaming, and then tomorrow I have my Keeper League, so that gives me 3 drafts in the book already for Dynasty, Redraft, and Keeper League. So I'm here for all angles, and the biggest day on the biggest week. I hope that everyone out there, at least the ones that are listening here, are going to look at these rankings. And I'm actually just going to jump right into it. Let's talk about the rankings a little bit. If you go down into if you want to pause it and you go down into the show notes, you'll be able to find it. We do it under Google Docs. I'm going to put it in there so you can write a comment on the actual rankings, and then you can actually go in and look at it. So on the left-hand side, we have the pro consensus ranking. So I took the top 5 best finishes last year for draft and for season long. I put those 5 pros in the category, and we have their consensus ranking off to the left-hand side. We broke it down into individual position. We have QB, wide receiver, running back, tight end, defense, and kicker. We don't have it's a 1 to 300, but then I pulled out, so it still has the numbers off to the left, so if you wanted to have a full list, I have the rankings as if it was a 1 to 300. So in there, you'll see the QB 1 to, I think we went up to 34 here, and then you can see the rankings on the left for their overall ranking on where they are with all positions added. So that's the pro consensus off to the left. That's the top 5 highest ranked last year for their actual drafts. And then off to the right, you have my name and Ryan's name. We actually took Ryan's rankings off because we both agreed on just doing our consensus. So you'll see that I have it in a tier-based system along with having it an actual 1-2 as far as I thought was actually necessary. So I have over to the right-hand side, I have the tier-based. I have them in my ranking order on which I would rather have these guys and where I think they're going to finish. And then even to the right of that, I also wrote in a little note saying if they're injured, what's the injured part, or if there's some hype behind their name, if like a coach is saying something. I also put in quotes next to that what the coach had said. So, I mean, obviously here I'll click over to running back, and then I have here Tariq Cohen. So the coach speak for Tariq Cohen is probably gave Tariq Cohen a little bit too much. And you remember that's come out about a couple weeks ago, and they were just talking about how Tariq Cohen was being used too much last year. And it's something that you need to keep in mind when you're drafting. I mean, you have Tariq Cohen getting too much. You have to kind of worry about that. If he's going to digress in the passing game, I mean, they might get more to, might give more to David Montgomery. Another cool thing that I kind of did, it was like a last second. I ranked the top 3 that I'm pretty much going to draft in every single one of my leagues, and I gave them in gold, silver, and bronze. And the gold is pretty much who I'm getting almost in every draft. I think he's in a great spot where I'm going to take him almost 10 out of 10 times if he drops in the actual ADP. Silver and bronze, same thing. If I can get them, I've been drafting them everywhere. And then usually the bronze is the guy that I'm targeting. And if I can get him for a good discount, I'm drafting him 10 out of 10 times. So maybe I'll touch on those. Let me touch on them real quick. So for quarterbacks, if you go to your quarterbacks, you'll see off to the right-hand side, I have my gold next to Matt Ryan. And if you look right next to that gold, you see 11 out of 12 games in a dome. I mean, if you have Matt Ryan playing the first 11 out of 12 games and he's going to be in a dome, I don't know how they set up this schedule, but he's just going to torch. And then that's why I have Julio Jones ranked so high. I mean, I think Hooper is going to be great. Freeman's going to be great. I like that offense in general. And like last year, I made sure to go out and get Matt Ryan. I made a trade. So I think he's going to be great this year. I know everyone's kind of worried about how he's up, he's down, he's up, he's down. I mean, this should be a down year if he continues that frame of up, down, up, down. But I think the schedule is just in it this year that Matt Ryan is probably going to be the number one quarterback. And then that's why I put Julio Jones so high, because I think his touchdowns kind of stick with what he did last season. And let's jump over. Just Julio Jones for me is number 3. So going on to my silver for quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson. Of course you have to put Lamar Jackson here. You're getting him for an absolute steal. Let me see what his ADP is if I have it up right here. Okay, so over in the expert consensus rankings, I have their position rank, when their BowTYz, their best and worst for that top 5, where the top 5 have them ranked, their average, and then their ADP. So the ADP is kind of a whole number, so it's a little bit difficult. If you're in a 12-man league, you divide it by 12. In a 10-man league, divide it by 10. So we're looking at, let's see here. I'm looking for, who was I looking for? Lamar Jackson. Okay, so if you go on the left-hand side here, let's see how far they have them down. Okay, so they have them at their QB 17. I think that is insane. Look at me. I have him over here, Lamar Jackson. I have him ranked. Where is he on my side? Oh my goodness. I gotta maybe shorten this up a little bit so that we can look at them both at the same time. Okay, Lamar Jackson. I have him at 11. And the expert consensus ranking has him at 17. I think that he finishes maybe even better than 11. I think that his running, and if he gets anything going with his arm, he's going to be dominant. So Lamar Jackson, average draft position, I'm pretty sure it's like late, close to like the 10th round. Let me see here. He's ADP of 121, so that's past the 10th round in a 10-man league. 12-man league, that's like right at the 10th. So perfect, Lamar Jackson. And then my last guy that I gave the bronze to, Jameis Winston. Of course, Jameis Winston, I mean, they're in an offense where it's just going to go absolutely bonkers. And I think that all it is just going to be a ton of passing. Of course, you're going to get a lot of picks. I mean, last year he came back after Fitzpatrick lost his job, and he had a really good year, and he threw less picks than he's ever thrown. I mean, I think his picks were almost under 5, if I remember that correctly. And seasons before that, everyone was worried because all he did was throw interceptions. And I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all about his Jameis Winston's throwing picks, because when he does throw a pick, he's still throwing probably the career high for the whole season for attempts. So I like Jameis Winston. I like his I like his weapons, and there's nobody there that's running the ball that's going to be, I don't think, is going to be that fantasy relevant. I'm not drafting any of them. I'm drafting all of that attack. Okay, let's switch over to wide receiver. I'm not going to be talk too much because we have gone over this, but my goal is Julio Jones. Of course, where I'm drafting in all my drafts, I'm not going to get Julio Jones because I'm at the 4. I'm at the 4, and then I'm at the end of the draft for our keeper league because I finished first. So Julio Jones, I'm not getting a bunch of, but I have him at gold. I have him at my 3 wide receiver. A lot of people are drafting Odell, Michael Thomas, Tyreek Hill, Juju. I mean, if this guy falls to you at the beginning of the second round, which he is, because a lot of people that I'm a little upset with that are drafting so many running backs in that first round, if you can pick up Julio on the turn, oh my God, you're doing so well. Or let's say everyone's picking running backs, you can get Julio at almost the mid to second round, like last year. You got to do it. I mean, I'm scheduling him up for a great year. My silver, of course, a lot of people are talking about him. Chris Godwin. If you scroll down, Chris Godwin is somebody that is on a system where Mike Evans is a little bit hurt. Mike Evans has that, what was it? He had a leg. He has a problem with his leg right now. He's still running, still practicing, but he's not playing in any preseason. Chris Godwin, I just think that with Humphreys gone, you have Deshaun Jackson gone. I could see Godwin stepping into that role, and I could see OJ Howard. He's going to get some of them targets, but also he's going to soak up some defenders. And you have a crossing Chris Godwin at like 15 yards out. I think he gets the ball a ton like that. And you could see a lot of games where if he doesn't score, he's going to be close to that 100-yard game, or let's say like close to 10 receptions. The amount of attempts that are going to go to him, if you're in a PPR, I just think is just fantasy gold because of how many times he's going to catch that ball coming across the middle. So you remember how Humphreys was a top 10 wide receiver. I mean, almost top 5 when he was going off. So I had him on one of my teams, and it just felt great. Last guy I have, I'm going to go all the way down to James Washington. I like to talk about James Washington just because of how talented of a wide receiver he is. And I think that he is going to come out and show up and be the number 2. I have him as a bronze. You want that number 2 when it comes to him or Moncrief. And I think that James Washington, just his physical build, is going to push him ahead. So just a quick little wide receivers. Let's go to running backs here. I mean, I was at a draft yesterday with a buddy of mine, and he was drafted on his phone, and we were just kind of going over my my rankings. He got Sony Michel. Okay, this is almost everyone's in this type of league where you're with a bunch of guys. They're just going off of ADP. Sony Michel went in the 6th round in his league, and I've been seeing him go in the 5th and 6th round. I mean, if you're talking about a guy that just looked fantastic in preseason, maybe the ADPs haven't adjusted before you're drafting today, and you're going to get Sony Michel for a steal while everyone else is like, oh, well, I'm looking at my the ADP, and it's saying, oh, Kerryon Johnson, James White, Marlon Mack, Melvin Gordon, Mark Ingram, and everyone's going to be like, oh, I got to take those guys. Sony Michel is just hiding there. And you could, and if you have people like that, and you're in the 4th round, you're looking at Sony Michel, but he's like a page down from everyone else that's looking at the ADP, I would sit back, grab your wide receiver, grab your, that's where you go and get your Godwin, and then it comes back around and you get Sony Michel, and you have Godwin as a flex. You go 2 wide receivers, or you get 1 running back, 2 wide receivers, then you get Sony Michel, who's going to be, to me, a top 10 running back if he stays healthy, a top 5 running back if he stays healthy. I think he's got that upside. Silver, Tevin Coleman. I mean, if you're in a PPR, half PPR, Tevin Coleman has to be so juicy for you. He's also another one that's going very late in drafts. And by late, I mean, I think he's in the 6th, 7th. And you're going to be getting him at that discount. And he's going to give you upside that I think of as like a Tariq Cohen of last year, when Tariq Cohen was getting a lot of passing yards, a lot of receptions, and he was also getting some play out of the backfield. So I think this is like a Tariq Cohen. He's going to get a lot of a lot of attempts, and then he's also going to run the ball more than Tariq Cohen. So I think that Coleman has good upside, and especially if you're going with wide receivers early, Coleman I am targeting a lot when it comes to the later. And then last but not least, a guy that I have on my dynasty, and he is just going up and up. Darwin Thompson has got my bronze, and if you can pick up Thompson still in the 12th round, you have to pick him up, because the amount of Kamara-like upside that Thompson holds is just insane. I've been getting a lot of offers. A lot of different people want him off my team on the dynasty. Let's just say the 6th round pick from the 6th round pick from the draft, he all of a sudden pans out. We've seen crazy things happen, like a Philip Lindsay, but in this case, he doesn't really have much to battle for. Damian Williams is not that prolific of a running back. I don't think he's ever topped over 15 rushes a game. And I mean, we're just going off of Damian Williams playing, I think, like 5 games at the very end of the season, and we're all just hyped about him. I think what we need to be hyped about is the run game that's in Kansas City. I mean, it's just like Pittsburgh, where if they throw in, whoever they throw in is going to be a great running back. And I think Darwin Thompson, if he's more of an athlete, then I think he's more of an athlete than what we have. He's smaller, but he's not that much smaller than Damian Williams. And Hyde possibly getting cut. Darnell Williams hasn't really shown much. I mean, he had a couple good games, but if Darwin Thompson you get him in the 12th round, and Darwin Thompson gets that a start, dude, you're looking at a top 10 running back, and you just stole him in like the last rounds. I have him right up there with the upside of Darrell Henderson, and Jalen Samuels and Matt Breida, and Justin Jackson, kind of in that range. And I would take him, now that I look at my rankings, I would almost take him above them, and I know that he's falling later. So just remember you have him, but don't forget about him, because if somebody else knows about it and you're in the 10th round, you're like, oh, I can wait 2 more rounds. You might want to take him there and then just secure it. And if he doesn't pan out, it might even be worthy to have him as a possible, it might be used at the third down back. So I think he's got a lot of upside. Switching over to tight ends. Talk about a rough, something rough to go over. You had kind of your starting Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Ertz, O.J. Howard. I mean, I put the gold next to O.J. Howard just because of that offense and how crazy it could be for the passing game. You're talking about a crazy freak in Howard. You're talking about possibly getting peppered with targets. Mike Evans is going to Mike Evans and Godwin. It could go the opposite way. Like I was talking about how O.J. Howard could pull a couple of defenders. What if Godwin pulls a couple of defenders and then OJ is just kind of running down the seam, or he's got that out route? Geez, you could even give it to him in a slant right through the middle. So OJ Howard, he has a lot of upside, and I have him at the 4. I think that a lot of people have him behind Ingram and Henry, but I have him as a 4, and he could possibly be up in that Ertz area. I could put him in the next tier. My next one is going to be silver. It's going to be Austin Hooper. And the reason that I'm just putting this hype on Hooper, we all know that last year he was more of a streamer. Didn't really do much, but you had some games that you could use him. The tight end position is very, very awkward when it comes to fantasy football lately. But Hooper, you take him. He's going to be late in the draft, and you're just kind of hoping on that upside of, 11 out of 12 games in the Dome. Matt Ryan possibly being the number 1 quarterback this year, and he's going to throw a ton. And Freeman's going to be great also. So that whole offense just looks like a great offense to attack. You want to get something off of it. So let's say you get down to those late rounds, you don't have any piece of that that Falcons attack. You have to go for Hooper. I mean, unless you already have your tight end, I think you got to get a piece. So that's why I like Hooper. And then last, Mark Andrews. Kind of a dark horse here. You've heard some good, you've heard some bad, but it's been more good. Mark Andrews playing with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's going to move the defense around a lot because there are going to be eyes on him. And let's see if we get a lot more dump-off passes to the tight end. He's looked good. Hayden Hurst was drafted before Andrews, but with Hurst not being able to stay healthy, Andrews is out there, and he kind of took that spotlight. We'll keep an eye on Andrews, and I have him as my bronze. He's a good late round if you want to go after. Another thing I wanted to mention, Vance McDonald just has not been able to stay healthy. I was very high on him. I took him in my dynasty. I'm almost scared, getting a little scared off because I'm not sure the attack of McDonald and his injury risk, if it's almost worth it anymore. I'm more going for like a Hooper Andrews later, or if I can get that O.J. Howard, if he slips to me in the mid to late rounds. So I'm thinking like 8 through 10. If you get a good tight end in there and people are passing up on him, it's a good time to scoop one up. So moving on to defenses and kicker. So of course on the top here I have highlighted stream defense. If you stream your defense, that means that you are picking the best option every single week. You're dropping your defense, picking up the defense that's playing the worst offense. You're almost guaranteed with all of the fantasy points that you accrue through streaming to get the 1 or 2 defense. It's just a fact. People go out there and they draft, let me get Jacksonville. All of a sudden they're like 15 or 16th defense last year. You weren't even happy to have them. You go out and you go get the Denver Broncos of a few years ago, and you had that great season. They fall off. I mean, stream your defense. You're looking at I got a few here that I put up here, and then I also put next to them the week 1 matchup, and then some have a good week through 1 through something. So sneaky one here, New England. I don't know how they do it every year, but they're going to be my target. If people are listening from our league, they might take them from me earlier because I'm not drafting that defense until like the second last round. New England's got a good week 1 through 7. If you could start this defense, plug them in, and almost forget about them for 7 weeks. And then you have, I forgot what the hard matchup was in week 8, but I think week 9 was a good matchup again. Buffalo, a good week 1 through 3. And then you have the Browns, Ravens, and Dallas. So Dallas plays the Giants week 1. You have Baltimore that plays Miami week 1. And then I forgot who Cleveland played, but they have a really good week 1. And then Buffalo, of course, you don't think of them as a good defense, but they have a great matchup week 1 through 3. And then lastly, kickers. When you go into a draft, if you're more of a serious drafter, I never draft a kicker. Leave all the kickers on the bench. Just leave them all. Leave them all in free agency, I mean. And go pick one up week 1. Here's where you want to get your, let's say you get to that last pick of the last, however many rounds you do. You're on your last pick, and you're like, oh, I got to get a kicker to fill out my roster. No. Leave that kicker spot empty. Go out and get something sneaky. Go out and get your Kalen Ballage. Go out and get your one backup running back that if let's say the starter all of a sudden trips going out of his front door, breaks his ankle, all of a sudden you have a guy that you could trade with another guy and go get your top end running back or top end wide receiver. I mean, if you're holding on to Mike Evans and then you're holding on to like Devin Singletary or Alexander Madison, and Dalvin Cook walks out his front door, breaks his ankle, and you have Madison on your bench, you could pair Madison, I would say even less than Mike Evans, and then just go out and get like your Julio or your Devontae Adams. You know, it's all it takes is that one little thing like that, and your team just upgrades tenfold. And not even Mike Evans. I'd almost want to keep Mike Evans. You take like a who do we got here? Let's think of like Robert Woods or something, and you tag him with a Madison that's going to be starting, and you go out and get your Julio Jones. I mean, this is the mindset you got to have when you go into a draft. You're going for upside. The people that draft like their Adrian Petersons late, maybe he gets a start week 1. You have Darius Geis there, but the upside you get, maybe a 1,000-yard rusher. He's not that flashy. I'd rather go for that second string backup that has the upside of like a Darwin Thompson, that if he goes off, all of a sudden you're winning your league. So those are the guys you want to kind of pick on. So lastly then, I kind of went over everything in that sheet. We're just going to touch on the stream tonight. So I'm going to set up almost the same setup I have here at my house. I got my computer I bring over there. I got the one monitor, and I'm going to bring the camera and this mic. And we're just going to be setting it up pretty much right next to the draft board. Set the camera up looking at the guys on the right-hand side and the left-hand side. I'm just going to have a capture of my screen. I'm going to have this exact Google Doc that you're going to find down in the show notes up. I'm also going to have SleeperBot up. It's going to keep track of the picks. I'll name all of the teams, and we'll just keep track of what people are picking. And then on the bottom, surprisingly, we'll be able to see the ADP of like what a normal person would see. And I'll just kind of, if I can, I'll talk over it with you guys live on what's going on. But you're just going to be able to see who the ADP says should be the next draft, the next one to draft. But then you can look down and see like that Sony Michel, like that sneaky Michel. You can go down there and see a lot of sneaky picks that are going to fall to you because people aren't looking at it. So that's going to be the setup. Once again, it's going to be at 6 p.m. Central. I'm going to have a ton of fun. I'm going to be setting it up just after I'm done talking here, and it's this episode's going to upload. And yeah, just go in the show notes if you want to use our rankings. I look it over more and more, and I'm always changing it. And what's good about this is that I'm pretty sure when I share it and you can comment on it, you pretty much get the live. You could probably see me clicking around and updating it as you're looking at it. And I'll just make sure to continue to get a fresh share just in case you don't see the updates as I'm doing them. And as we go on to next week, we're going to do the same exact thing. I'm just going to keep talking about this and keep updating it. Injuries always push guys down, and this is like season-long rankings. This is who I'm thinking is going to finish above other people, and I really look forward to seeing how it does against the top 5 pro consensus off to the left. And hey, if you there's a couple things you disagree with on our rankings, look over to the left at the pro consensus and see where they have them ranked. It doesn't hurt to have a bunch of different options. This is what I do every year, and I love looking off to like a full list of top 5 pro consensus. I've done it every year, and then I kind of rearrange it what I like, but it's very good to have, and especially if they're the top ranked pros in the league, they know what they're doing. So they have insight and they have stats from other people that help them out that possibly we don't have, but we listen to them and all their podcasts anyway, so we get that information and we use it as well. So you're kind of getting a one-stop shop here for our Excel sheet, and I hope that everyone likes it. If you do like it, please leave a rating. Go into our Apple podcast, go into our YouTube, just throw some comments down, rating, subscribe. It just all helps, and I just constantly want to reiterate that because we are just a couple of guys. We have a ton of fun talking about fantasy. I mean, I was just woke up this morning. My fiance left, and I'm like, you know what? I need to get on here. I need to talk again about fantasy. I'm super hyped for it. I should be out there cutting the grass right now. Hopefully, I'm not sure if I'll be able to get out there now that I'm doing this and I kind of setting this up, but maybe I'll get yelled at for that. But just love it. Love fantasy football. I know Ryan loves fantasy football. He's already got guys over at his house, and I can't wait to see if anyone wants to show up and watch this draft. So I have a couple of guys that I was talking to last night that'll be watching. Just get in there, ask questions. I'll answer anything. And if the room wants to throw some shade at us, we're always just bantering left and right as we do the draft. It's just a ton of fun. So I hope you make it there, and I look forward to just anyone that shows up. Ask questions. Love everyone that's doing this fantasy football. So have a great draft. Good luck with everything, and just kind of word of food for thought. Don't draft a kicker. All right, peace, guys.